That would be really helpful. And I think with that, we're about ready to start. Awesome. Okay, well, let's make these 2 days count. Let's learn, let's connect, and let's get inspired. And with that, I will introduce our first speaker. His session is about customer value unlocked, providing, delivering, and accelerating impact. And his name is Shawn White. Welcome to the stage, Shawn.
Thank you, Millie, for that. Hey, I really appreciate everyone's time this morning. I'm thrilled to be here this morning to be the first speaker, so a little nerve-wracking, but I am excited to be here with you. I want to start with a story. And maybe some of you have heard this story, but go with me for a moment. And imagine a businesswoman with 2 kids, goes to a hardware store, and she wants to buy a drill. And so she looks around and doesn't know exactly what kind of drill to get. But yet she knows she needs a drill, so she looks around and sure enough, she sees some, she finds one that looks good, it's priced well, it's got good reviews, so she buys it. Now, you might be asking, why did she buy a drill? Well, the obvious answer is to drill a hole. And if you asked enough questions about what kind of material she was going to drill into or what size hole, we might have directed her to the perfect drill. And gosh, you might say this is very insightful, and maybe with a few more questions, you might have actually learned that what she really wants to do is to build a bookcase. And you might say, well, that's a lot of insight right there. Ask enough questions, and you might find out what your customer's goal is. Seems reasonable. That's what we do in customer success. But what if I told you that actually her real goal wasn't to build a bookcase, but was to create a space that she can come home to after a long day, maybe with the kids, and just to relax. A place that she can put her books up, see some pictures, and just at the end of the day, just chill. Have a cup of coffee. And I think this is how oftentimes customers buy software from us. They're seeking a product, but we know they want an outcome. They're looking for a drill, and what they really want is a place to relax. I believe that's where value is rooted. It's rooted in something that is personal. An outcome that is personal to that individual that you're talking to. And unless we take the time and interest into learning that, we may never be able to discover it. I'm Shawn White, and for the last decade, I've led the customer success team at Dynatrace, a team of over 400 customer success professionals driving $2 billion in ARR. It's an exciting time at Dynatrace. We're an observability and security platform that helps businesses understand the health of their applications and how users interact with them. And our mission is to see a world where software works perfectly. And you know this, every business is a digital business. Complexity is exploding, and our success depends not just on delivering software, but helping our customers realize and prove the value of what we do. Not just our businesses, but us in customer success. But I believe that we've overcomplicated what value is. We have all these terms and models and frameworks and acronyms, and they're all important. Don't get me wrong, we need these. They provide consistency across global teams. They provide hopefully predictable outcomes when we achieve these and drive these. But I believe, and I'm certainly guilty of this, that sometimes we get stuck on the process and we forget what matters most. And at the end of the day, value is really one thing. It's solving a problem that matters. But here's the catch. Just like the woman going in and buying a drill, or maybe your customer looking for a feature, they don't tell you what the real problem is. They want a place to relax, but they only see that through the lens of the drill. They ask for a feature when maybe what they're really looking for is less stress, maybe that promotion, and a growing business. And that's, I think, where customer success comes in. Now, you see this in other areas. How many of you guys got coffee this morning? Thank God for the caffeine, but it wasn't about the coffee alone, right? It was about creating a place people can relax, a sense of community. And maybe cloud storage is not all about gigabytes and the latest encryption algorithm and where the data is stored. It's about peace of mind, knowing that the data will be available when you need it most. And sure, that sofa's got to look good in your living room, be comfortable, but it's not about furniture. It's about creating a place where your family can create memories and being together. So our job in customer success is to really uncover the why behind the why. Because if we don't understand the real why, I'm going to challenge you that maybe we'll never be able to prove real value. Now, I want to tell you a story. This is a real story. It hit home to me. I have 3 young daughters. I had one that was actually in the intensive care unit at a particular hospital here in the Bay Area. And true story, a competitor of ours was working with one of the nation's largest largest hospital networks across the country. And they just built an app that would send notifications to their doctors, the pediatric cardiologist in the NICU, the intensive care unit for babies that were preborn or premature. And the purpose of this app was to give immediate information to the doctor about what was going on with the condition of that patient. But the problem was this application was unreliable. And so they had to revert back to the old way of doing things in this hospital network. That the monitoring system would page the nurse's station would look at it, page the doctor on those old pagers, remember those from the 80s and 90s? And the doctor would look at it, call the nurse's station, and only then would he be able to provide some kind of care to that patient. Precious minutes were being lost that could have cost precious lives. Well, of course, the story ends with Dynatrace coming in, and within a few hours of us getting installed, in less than an hour, a few weeks later, they fixed the bug in their application. Now, you might say this story of find, fix faster was valuable, and it absolutely was. It's on our website. So it definitely was a great story, but real value actually came a few months later, when we started seeing and hearing that this app that had been having problems for months, doctors were starting to adopt it. And they were realizing these moments that were saved were saving lives. For the hospital network, value wasn't finding the problem to the app. It was being able to achieve what their goals were as a mission, their mission as a company, which was to save lives, patient outcomes. And that has become the foundation for a years-long relationship for us, an 8-figure ARR customer, and one that has turned them into an advocate willing to speak for us at conferences. It wasn't about find, fix faster. It was about aligning it to something personal that matters to them. And so we turned this and operationalized this concept into what we call the value flywheel. Proving value, delivering value, accelerating value. And I just want to walk you through it very quickly here this morning. The first, proving value. Now, you've heard this saying that you got to measure it. If you can't measure it, you can't prove it. And so the first step, obviously, is you have to tie every every outcome that your solution provides to something that matters to the business, their business. You know this is kind of customer success 101. But I will tell you, it's so often we get stuck on our marketing website's page and what it says the value is, and not translating that to what matters to our customer and those KPIs. And once we have that, then I'm going to challenge us to say, well, what are the whys behind it? It's not enough, in my view, that we can just measure something and show progress in a chart that says, look, you were here, and maybe it was some type of return on investment or time saved or dollars earned, and now you're here, but translating it back to something that really matters at a personal level for that person or that business. And the technique I use is a 5 whys technique. This was developed by Toyota in the 1930s. It has now become the cornerstone for lean methodology and how software is developed and manufacturing lines. It's very simple. It's peeling back the onion, asking 5 whys. Now, it doesn't have to be 5. It could be 10. It could be 3. The example I'll give from my industry is customer might come to me and say, we need faster dashboards because we provide data and we give insights. We need faster dashboards. And of course, that makes sense. We don't want people to wait around and hitting refresh on their browser. But if I took a moment and said, well, why is that important to you, Madam Customer? And she might come back and say, well, don't you understand? We need to solve these problems quickly. We have war rooms that people come together to solve these problems all around the world. Don't you get it? And of course, I get it. I've run IT. I know what it's like to be in a war room situation. And if I pause a little bit and ask why that third time, person might say, well, you know what's so important is we're losing revenue. And we're not just losing revenue for revenue's sake, we're losing it against an SLA that we promised and committed to our customer. And so now we're losing credibility with our customers. And with just that couple questions of going a little bit deeper, I've went from dashboards to risk associated to an SLA. And if I can solve the first problem, I get permission to provide more value later on, because maybe I can tell this person, well, did you know that in our solution that we can create a dashboard to let you create a tile in your dashboard so you can see how much money you're losing, how many customers are being impacted beyond just metrics. So I have permission to give even more. That would have never been possible if I just solved the first why and not got a little deeper. And then I want to challenge you with something that looks so simple on the surface, but if you've done this for any length of time or run teams, I'll tell you, this is hard, is being able to turn this into a very simple customer value statement. I already said earlier that value at its core is solving a problem. But I bet if you were to ask your customer a question, what problem are we solving you? You'll probably get one of two things. One is they don't know, or they don't know how to articulate it, or the problem that they say you're solving does not align with what your marketing team has put on the webpage, right? And so it's important to get alignment with your customer. What is it that you're solving together? And then, as I mentioned earlier, aligning it to some measure of impact that you can actually track progress over time. Aligning it with the customer, and then taking your why and putting it together in a why statement. Now, we use this as the internal pitch deck for our customer. It's one slide, literally, it's part of a deck. And we say, customer, this is what you can use to your CFO when they're asking, should we renew? Should we grow? Should we push this to another team? It sounds so simple, but I'll tell you, I've worked with peers in the Bay Area here. This doesn't exist for most teams. And it's so simple to actually implement and institute in Salesforce, Gainsight, Tatango, all the other solutions that are out there. All right, delivering value. So once you prove it, then the next stage is you have to deliver it consistently. Now at Dynatrace early on, I'll tell you the truth here, be very transparent. Our value delivery was very siloed. We had onboarding teams and support teams and success teams and renewal teams and sales teams. And sometimes we were using the same systems, and sometimes we were using different systems, and sometimes looking at the data differently, and sometimes not even allowing access to the data. And that led to a very inconsistent experience for our customers. Your experience that a customer had with us depended upon who you talked to. And our customers are smart. They knew who to talk to get something done. Well, that's not the experience we wanted with our customers. And so we built a model where every interaction reinforces value, all the way from the onboarding session, where the onboarding starts to talk about, well, what matters to you, what business impact do we need to drive towards, to then our health checks and account reviews would then reinforce that and take that measurement all the way through renewals, where we're not talking about pricing and discounts alone, we're talking about business impact. And it looks like this. This is literally what it looks like for us. This idea of a continuous model here, where we start with working with the customer with a goal. We created some prescriptive onboarding journeys. And this was relatively easy for us because we know our personas. We know the problems that we're trying to solve. They're on our website, right? And we know the problem, and we know what the value of our solution. So we just created multiple journeys that aligned with these. And when we had this discovery conversation with our customer, we just plugged in a playbook. And we made that accessible to everybody. Two-way conversations happening between the teams. A support ticket comes in, a support engineer can get access to what were the goals. What was the customer's, the last QBR with us? Now, I'm not necessarily saying that the support engineer is going to use that, but just the fact they have access to that and are empowered with that information. That tears down silos and creates consistency across your experience. And then the last thing I'll just share is a mantra that we use at Dynatrace. I think I'm going to use it for the rest of my life, is this idea that water is hot at 211 degrees Fahrenheit. It's scalding. You won't go into the bathtub with that. But with that one extra degree, water starts to boil. That boiling water turns into steam, and with enough steam, you can move trains. And so it really is that one extra degree. Not a lot. That proactive follow-up with product management or a feature with a customer. It's following up that after a ticket is closed, the CSM or the CSC comes in and says, hey, I saw the thing happen last week. I just want to make sure, are we all good here? Because we all know, we've all experienced that at a restaurant, at a department store, at a bank, where that person, you just know, just went a little bit above and beyond. It's not that they delivered that to you, it's that they made you feel something. made you feel important, and that's what creates memories. That's what people share on social media. So the customers don't remember what you did for them, they remember how you feel. Okay, cool. If I can turn that button there. And the last one, AI. Now, I can't be here in the Bay Area and not bring up AI. They would have pulled me off the stage if they saw this deck and say, hey, there's no AI on here. At Dynatrace, we've been doing AI for over a decade in our platform. We have no choice. We process trillions of dependencies and events every day for our customers to uncover root cause, to identify relationships and patterns and anomalies within how applications are performing across, the globe and hybrid cloud. I can bore you to death with all these details. We've done that, and we said, well, wait a second, what if we can turn this inward? What if all the stuff we've learned in the last 10 years, what if we took some of this and applied it to our own teams? And so we attempted to do that. And there's a few areas that we're experimenting with. And I'll be honest, we are still experimenting, right? Because one of the things we've learned, and maybe you'll hear this today, is garbage in, garbage out. The data's got to be all together. It's got to be consistent. AI actually has ways of solving for that too. But we are now looking at all the patterns in our data, looking specifically at telemetry data, how customers are accessing a product, when they're using it, who they're using it, what areas of our product they're using, and looking at that and saying, well, where are the patterns where customers ultimately churned? And maybe there's things we can look at from a vertical perspective, from a customer segment perspective, from a geography perspective, and understanding that. And so we're doing that now, looking at all the data we have, using AI to help us understand predictive churn analysis. We're also, interestingly, trying to use it to create narratives of not just how customers are using a product, but how it's solving problems for them. And in the financial services, or maybe it's in healthcare or hospitality for us, what are the patterns that we're seeing in the data, and as well as the interactions that customers are having with us? We're logging all this. We're combining product usage data with human interaction data and saying, well, what's going on here? And then with our financial data in Salesforce. So how do all these patterns combine to ultimately create narratives for what customers are getting value for? So a CSM isn't just having to pull all this data together and create their own stories. We can share maybe stories that really resonate to certain industries. And of course, the holy grail for us is growth, is taking all this data and where do we identify patterns that ultimately lead to expansion? Because we have a whole bunch of unmined gold sitting in our backyard in customer success, of the interactions we have with us, of how even when support opens up a severity 1 ticket, or a customer opens up a severity 1, that's gold. That means the customer has something crucial they're trying to do, and oftentimes in customer success, we sit back and go, I hope they solved it in time. Let me know if you need to escalate it. That's unmined gold, and if we can unlock that, we might find growth opportunities. And so we're just starting to experiment with that today. So you can see here, the goal is not to replace CS or human beings with AI. It's actually to amplify them, to be the force multiplier, that 1 + 1 can equal 5 or 15 or 25. That's what we believe is possible. And we're starting to see little glimmers of hope with this today. Now, I hear this from my peers. Where do we start? I ask this myself almost every day. Where do we start? And this first one's going to sound super simple for you. You're going to say, come on, Shawn, this is crazy. We could just walk out here and already know this. But I'll tell you, this is the number one thing that I see that doesn't happen. It's just start. Start experimenting. For me, that was going on YouTube, watching how other companies, other industries, manufacturing, I'm in software, manufacturing, how they're using AI, and trying to learn what they're doing and just say, hey, is there an application for us here in CS or in software? I work with IT teams, so for IT teams. So that's the first one. And it's really just experimenting, trying things out. LinkedIn has a lot of access to how other teams in CS are using AI. And just experimenting, and you will fail. It'll take a long time. It will give you lots of hallucinations, but you will find some successes. And with enough time, you will find that you will build up a story of what works and what doesn't. And the next challenge I have for you is you have to share it. This has to be a grassroots thing, not just a top-down thing, but a bottoms-up movement of how individual contributors within a CS organization can leverage AI to empower them and share those experiences, because those shared experiences will create inspiration and new creative ideas for what else is possible. Because the biggest challenge I had, and I still have with AI, is I don't even know what's possible. I'm sitting here like, you mean you could do that? This idea of chain thought and prompts, and I can create multiple prompts and ultimately turn that into an automated agent? I didn't even think that was possible. Now we're doing that, all because one of my guys out in Florida was experimenting. He put it on Slack. I go, wow, let's operationalize that. So it really becomes crucial to not just experiment, but to share your successes and your failures with your team, your managers, below you, side, everywhere. It's really crucial that you do that, because then what will emerge over time are a set of best practices. And that's the step number 3, is best practices. That will create the flywheel for you. Now again, as I said, you might think this is overly simplistic. And it is. Super simple. I'm not going to lie to you here. But what I hear so often is that number 1 is the hardest to break through. Because anyone who's been in CS for more than 5 or 10 years, we're just doing what we've been doing for the last 5 or 10 years. This whole AI thing is new to us. We have to go back to the under 25-year-olds in our team to figure this out, right? Those of us over 25, we have to learn a new way of doing things. So this is new. And we don't, again, as I said, we don't even know what's possible. And so I would challenge you to look at the younger folks in your team, because they're AI native. My kids are going to grow up AI native. I'm going to learn from them, hopefully. And this will allow us the time to focus more on the things that are not replaceable. Creating connections, developing relationships, building trust with our customers. Now, I don't want you to take my word for it. I had an opportunity to interview Jay Cotton, who's the lead performance engineer at Kroger. Kroger is a nationwide grocery chain. They're not here on the West Coast. They're big in the middle of the US and the East Coast. And I had an opportunity to interview him, and I asked him, how did Dynatrace change your world? And I was expecting an answer of, well, we did find, fix, faster, and you helped our IT team here. And he told us something so much more. Now, unfortunately, that was not recorded. And so we took that and turned it into a podcast with our CMO, and this is just 20 seconds. So hear what he has to say about what matters to him.
In my previous job, I was working 70 hours a week, and I just didn't have time for everything. I almost lost almost a year of my daughter's life because I just didn't get to see her. I didn't get to see my wife, and it was absolutely awful. And now I'm super happy, and my child's super happy, and I get to see everybody, and I get to be the dad and the family man that I wanted to be. It's partially because of utilizing the software.
20 seconds. And we just found out that it wasn't just about the software. The thing that's on my marketing website, the playbooks that we put together for our CSMs, the consultants on my team, and implementing it and giving them find, fix faster, that's important. But for Jay, and probably for many of us, it's something more human. In his case, he told me on stage, I can go watch my daughter's soccer game, something I've never been able to do before because I had to carry the pager. And for us, at least for me as a father of 3 daughters, I'm like, wow, we're not just changing his IT team, we're changing his dynamics at home. And Jay is willing to speak with us online, that's from YouTube, on conferences, customer stories. This is a longtime advocate. He will be a Dynatrace advocate no matter where he goes, because he knows that we connected at a much deeper level. We changed his family dynamic at home, not just what happened at the office. So what can we do today? What I want to challenge you with. I would challenge you to take your top account. And if you're a leader, asking your team to take their top account. And do that simple thing. And maybe you already have your own version of a customer value statement. Maybe it's 2 pages long, I don't know. Maybe just try it out with this super simple approach. Aligning on what problem are we solving you, Mr. or Madam Customer? How do we measure that impact so we know if we're successful and therefore you're successful? And why is that so important to you? Because I want to align to what matters most, not just with your business, but to you as a human. Maybe the second thing is maybe looking across your entire book of business that you support and asking yourself, are we proving value here, or are we just assuming it? We do a QBR and we show all the activity and the license utilization and the usage of the product, but oftentimes, at least the ones that I see, don't always talk about the value we're providing the customer, the measurable impact. And so the challenge I see here is, are you just assuming it, or can you measure it? Are you measuring impact versus activity? And then finally, you really do start exploring with AI. I have a challenge for myself this year, is that everything I do, now this is kind of lofty, but everything I do, every process I have, every report I create, every email I write, is there a place I can start to introduce AI into that process? Now, it may not be everything, but I'm going to start with an AI-first mindset. Try it for 1 week. You'll probably get a little overwhelmed, no matter what your tool of choice is, from Copilot, Gemini. I mean, there's so many out there. But just try it. You might start to, eyes might be opening up. Your idea of exploration and experimenting and sharing it, you'll create your own flywheel in the process. And I think when we do this, we will actually start to unlock value beyond what's on our customers' websites or on our company's websites. What's embedded in your own playbooks. We'll unlock the value that really matters to the customer. Something that is deeper than just product features and capabilities. And I think this is the real value of customer success. Bridging the gap between what matters most and what our product capabilities are. And so with that, I really do want to thank you for your time this morning. I would love to continue the conversation with you. There's ways of connecting with me on LinkedIn and email. I know there's going to be maybe a Q&A, so I'm going to ask Millie to come back up here. Thank you.
There is. We'll keep you here on stage, Shawn. I don't know about you guys, but that was 212 degrees. What do you think?
Thank you.
All right, we're going to be using Slido again for some of the questions that the audience here has, Shawn. So the first one is, do you use anything other than the 5 whys to uncover customer value?
That's a great question, Mr. or Madam Anonymous. We do. I think it's, again, I tell you this, we try to make it, we overcomplicate it. And I know that wasn't just a slide. It really is as simple as asking the question, what problem are we solving? Or maybe you got to reverse it. What problem are we not solving? And I do think it really is as simple as just asking a couple why questions. Now, you're not going to, I wouldn't be a robot and say, well, why? Well, why? I like my 5-year-old daughter. Like, why? Right? But being curious, right? And just uncovering why does that matter to you? Having knowledge of the industry. You know, knowing that, you know, in IT space where I work with, IT and operations are being overtaken by developers. Right? And so they have a natural concern about what my job is going to be in 5 years beyond just AI. So how can I uncover that and have some knowledge of that?
Awesome. I think we have a few more minutes, so we'll go to the next question. Give one example of your top customer about value and how did you explore the same?
I gotta maybe better understand the question. Give one example of your top customer about value. So I'm not going to share specific customer names today. But here's an example maybe I'll give you. So there's a very large airline uses us, embeds us in every piece of software that they use, from check-in to your baggage claim to your app to knowing who you are on your seat so that they have your credit card already saved for what food preference you have, your line, everything with this airline. You know the airline if I told you. And there's this interesting dashboard they asked us to create. Now, again, we're in the business of data. We have data all over the place, metrics, servers, performance, health, customer behavior. We have all that. And he said, what I want you to do is create a dashboard for my CIO that doesn't show any of that stuff. I just want to see the experience of when a person checks their bag at the airport all the way through the end to when they retrieve it. And show me the various steps in the middle. Did they talk to an agent? What did they do after that agent? Did they board the plane? Because they can track that, by the way. Did you go into a lounge? They can track that, by the way. All the way down to, did you check it on your phone? And then did you pick up your bag? Did you go? So for them, in that case, value had nothing to do with our systems. And this is CIO. His job has the I in it for systems, right? He said, I just care about the customer experience of baggage. And he has this cool dashboard that has graphics on it using our data, empowered with it. So for him, value is measured in the experience that the bag travels from end to end. And so that was just an example of one of our larger customers doing that. And we had to walk him through that. We had to say, well, what matters to you and your CIO? And of course, he said, well, customer experience. That's what matters to us. So what customer experience? What areas does the customers get most frustrated with or they have the greatest concern? It's your bags, right? Not just, that's more important than being on time, right? And so he said, how do we build that? And that's what we did.
I've lost my bag so many times, so I feel that. I feel that to the bone. Okay, I think we have 4 more minutes. The next question is, with value milestones always changing, how have you solved the problem with reporting these dynamics?
I would ask this person if he can give more clarity, if you'd be willing to be unanonymous, because I don't understand the question.
I got it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's my
go.
question. So when, value milestones, every time you achieve a milestone.
Got it, okay.
Value, and there's a new milestone.
Yeah, okay.
Evolving it. How do you kind of show that change over time? Because, your customers, your CS team, your leaders internally always kind of want to see, like, how are we continually improving value?
Got it. So just for everyone else, and maybe the recording here too, is so in our normal customer journey, we have these milestones that are important that we might work with the customer, have our own, and how do we measure when those, or how to report on how those milestones are achieved and how we make progress to the next one? Is that sort of what I'm getting at? Yeah. So I think even for us, I'll tell you, we don't have it solved either at Dynatrace, right? So we're not perfect. We have the same exact challenges, new product releases, and we have very dynamic customers in different industries, and so that changes. I think one of the things that we've tried to do in some of our solutions is to pick just one metric, just one, that hopefully can be consistent over the course, in our case, of a year, right? And even if those milestones change, we at least worked with the customer to figure out what's the thing that matters to you most in this season or of transformation or the thing that you're trying to achieve, and try not to change that. The activities might change, and they do change certainly. The teams might change, but we always try to refer back. That one graphic where the lines were pointing back, that was pointing back to the goal. And that goal has an association with some KPIs. So that's what we tried to do so that we don't have change. Otherwise, you're right. You'll never know if you're making progress if the thing you're measuring always changes. Yeah.
Awesome. I think we're a little bit about time. So thank you, Shawn, for being here today. It was just really insightful, and you had such a great start. I hope that you like the audience and the questions. And yeah, everybody come talk to Shawn. Ask him more questions if you have any. Before I introduce the next one, I'll be right back.